So we've all been in the situation where you have two pieces of gear. You have this trinket that sounds really, really good, but then you also have this trinket that sounds really, really good, and you don't know which one is better. So you head to your local sweaty Discord server and you're quickly met with the answer, just sim it. And that wasn't the answer you were looking for. So then you head over to my stream. And by the way, I do stream on Twitch, link is in the description below, and you ask your question again. And before I even get a chance to read it, one of my mods hits you with a, you have to sim it. And that's what they're told to do, by the way. I'm not throwing my mods under the bus here. We're not trying to be dismissive or jerks by immediately giving you that answer. It's simply the only way you're going to get accurate info because there's so much nuance in this game. Your character, your stats, the eye level of the gear, the situation, the talents you're using, all of these can affect whether something is good for you or not. What's good for my character could be absolutely trash for your character. So in this video, I'm going to give you the TLDR on how to sim so you can feel confident in equipping that piece of gear, taking that item out of your weekly great vault, or just choosing which enchant to put on your newly looted weapon. If you're looking to maximize your gold earnings in the War Within, or even just be a bit better about managing your money, TSM is the one-stop tool to help you become the gold goblin you were always meant to be. TSM can help you manage your auctions with ease, making sure you're not underselling your items or overpaying for your raid consumables every week. I've been grinding out professions pretty hard so far in the War Within, and TSM is able to help me figure out exactly what I should be crafting and what will make me the most profit. One of my favorite features is the sniper feature, which allows you to find and purchase items listed well below market value, which you can then resell for profit. TSM now has new premium packages that help you elevate your gold making by tapping into TSM's vast database to help you make informed decisions on what to buy and when to sell. Use my link in the description to get 15% off your first purchase of a premium TSM package. All right, so if you're brand new, you'll have to get the add-on Simulationcraft, and you can get this from whatever program you use to manage your add-ons. I personally use WowUp plus CurseForge. This allows me to keep all of my add-ons up to date, as well as LVY, so I can just update everything with the click of a button. So whatever you guys decide to use for managing and updating your add-ons, go there, search for the add-on Simulationcraft. You just have to install it and then head into the game. Now, once you get into the game, log into one of your characters, and you're going to type /simc in your chat and press enter. And this is going to bring up a big wall of text. You can see it's already highlighted. Just click Control-C to copy it and press OK. Now, this info that you're copying is essentially the code of your entire character. This is your level, your race, your server, your stats, your gear, the gear you have in your bags. This is containing every little bit of information that will be relevant when it comes to simming your character. So with that in mind, we want to make sure that we're simming with the proper talents that we're trying to get an accurate sim for. So if you're simming single target, make sure you're in your single target build. Or if you're simming AoE, make sure you're in your AoE build. This is very important. And now you're going to go to the website raidbots.com. And it's going to look like this. So on the front page, you're going to see 4 different modules. We're going to go over the majority of these in the video, but the first one we're going to start with is Top Gear. Once you click on Top Gear, this page will load and you'll see this box here that text goes into. If there's already text in there, just click on it once and backspace. And now what you need to do is press Control-V to paste the text we previously copied into this box. And what this does is it loads up your character so we can start simming. The main use of Top Gear is so you can compare items against each other to see which will result in the highest DPS possible. And it doesn't only compare items in the same slot, but you can set up different gear sets and see which upgrade will be the best for you or which combinations of upgrades will ultimately be the best. So if we scroll down, we'll start seeing our different armor slots here. And this is where you can select 2 items within the same slot. And once we press Start Sim, this will compare these 2 items against each other in that slot to tell us which one is going to give us the most DPS. Now, let's say that we wanted to upgrade these shoulders. We're going to click on the plus sign, and this will give us options of upgrade tiers that we actually have access to based on our resources. So because I only have 15 Gilded Harbinger crests, this is the only one I can afford because of the crests. This is the only one I can click on. But if we click on that, that now adds a new version of this item in the shoulder slot. And we could, if we wanted to, uncheck this original one. Now, let's say you had an item that could potentially have a socket on it, and click on the plus sign, and this will give you the option to add a socket. So for any item you have that doesn't have a socket and you want to see what putting a gem into that item would be in terms of a damage increase, you can do it that way. So now we have a version of this helm with a socket on it. Now let's say you want to sim an item that you don't even have. It's not in your bags, it's not on your character, but you're curious about how it would affect your damage. You can come up to this section here, the item search section, so you can type in the name of the item, you can assign its item level, and then the stats that it has on it. So let's say we wanted to get the rune branded grasps. Okay, so before you click on it, you want to make sure you set the item level. So we can set it at 619, for example, say crit mastery, and then you want to click on the item. Now that adds it into the hands section. So now we can actually sim this rune branded grasp against what we currently have, the Claws of Hypogeal Nemesis at 613. So this is how you add items into the mix that you don't currently own. This is the way that you want to be simming items. If there's one item in particular from the raid that you are curious of how it might affect your damage, or maybe an item from Mythic Plus, there are other ways for you to find that information out, but you end up having to sim a lot of items at once just to find out the info that you're looking for based on one item. So this is an easy way and quicker way to get the info off of just one item. Now, as we scroll down further, you'll see that we have the capability of simming enchants against each other. So let's say we're confused and we don't know if we should be using Authority of Depths or Authority of Radiant Power. We can click on both of these, and now when we sim, it's going to compare these two against each other and see which one gives us the most DPS. There's one important step that a lot of people forget. If you look right up above this window, there's a box that says replace existing gems and enchants. What this does when it's checked is it will compare whatever you are selecting in this sim against what you already have on your items. So if you already have an enchant on your weapons, this will compare these options against that enchant that you currently have. What it does if you uncheck this box is that it applies these enchants or the gems or whatever you're selecting only to items that don't currently have enchants or gems in them. So if you're looking to compare things against what you already have, you want to make sure you have this box checked. When you do this, this is going to increase the amount of combinations that the sim is going to be told to sift through. And sometimes it could be too many. Right now it's telling me I have too many combinations because I have a lot of gems selected. So this is where you have to be careful. Gems add a ton of different combinations. So for now, we're just going to uncheck all of these. And now you can see we got our iteration count down to 165,000 with 33 combinations total. Now, just a quick comment when it comes to the gems. As you're simming your gems, you kind of have a good idea of what stats are going to be good for your character. So if you're playing a Havoc Demon Hunter, for example, you're going to know that your main stats are mostly crit mastery, maybe a little bit of haste every now and then. So you can avoid clicking on ones that you know aren't going to be useful, like maybe haste verse, right? You don't need to sim that one. And if you can cut back on how many you're actually clicking on and adding into the sim, it'll make it go so much quicker for you. In the War Within, they have these primary stat gems that everybody should have at least one of. So there's one that gives you 181 primary stat and 0.15% critical effect per unique Algari gem color. Critical effect can be anything. It can be critical strike chance, critical strike damage, critical healing, anything like that. The other one gives you movement speed. I don't know if there are classes that use this. I'm guessing there are a couple. Either way, you want to make sure you're always using one of these. So make sure you click on this. And when you click on this, this makes two other boxes appear. This first box, always use. This tells the sim to always include one primary stat gem. This is very important. This other box is only 4+ colors. So if you remember, if we looked at the tooltip of this, it says the more variation of gems that we have equipped on our character, the more effect we get from this gem. So we want to check this box, and this will guarantee that we have at least 4 different gem colors put into our character to get the maximum potential out of this gem. Doing this may or may not be the best for your character, so I would experiment with both. Some classes might just want all of one type of gem if those particular stats are very good for you. In most cases, you'll want to have at least 4 different colors, so make sure this is checked. Now, as we scroll down a little further, you'll see that we have our different talent loadouts. So the wall of text that we copied from the game earlier and plugged into Raidbots, the information included in that was our different talent loadouts that we had saved on our characters. You can see I have the one active currently. That's what I had turned on in the game. AR, single target low mover, Felsguard Raid, single target, Felsguard Mythic Plus, Delves. So you can compare different talent builds against each other. The one thing to remember when doing this is your talent builds are likely set up in a way that is particular to a certain type of combat. You're going to have single target talent loadouts, you're going to have AoE, you're going to have cleave, you're going to have solo play, and all of those sort of thrive in different encounter types and different mob counts. So if you're trying to sim for single target, you wouldn't want to be simming in your AoE build, for example, because a lot of your talents that are included in this build aren't really associated with single target, and they're going to make your sim have inaccurate information. Now, if you are simming AoE, you would want to scroll down here to the simulation options, and this is where you have the capability of changing how many targets, the fight length, all of these things influenced the results that you get from your sims. You're able to select exactly what potions you're using, what food you're using, your flask, your augment runes, all your raid buffs. Most APLs have a set profile of these consumables that they're using, but if you want to use something different and you're looking to see the difference between one or the other, you can select that in here. So as an example, if we set the fight style to patchwork, 1 boss, 5 minutes, this is going to make our AoE talents look really, really bad. This setup is more suited to single target. Now, if we wanted to do AoE, there's a few different ways we could do that. We could try doing Dungeon Slice. Now, Dungeon Slice is a bit iffy because it's not fully AoE, it's not fully single target, and it doesn't always accurately represent what a Mythic Plus dungeon would look like. So if you read the description of it, it says 6-minute slice of a Mythic Plus dungeon overrides fight length. So the way that this works is it starts off single target and it slowly increases in target count as you get towards the end of that 6-minute slice. So as I said, it's a combination of single target and AoE. Now this isn't going to be accurate to what a true Mythic Plus dungeon looks like, because right away in Mythic Plus, you're likely doing a big pull. As soon as you start, there's going to be more than 1 or 2 mobs in the majority of pulls. There's going to be single target boss fights that last multiple minutes. There's going to be travel time. There's going to be deaths. All of these things can't really be accounted for in a sim, but as long as you know what this fight style is replicating and how it's trying to do that, that at least gives you an idea to work with. The other thing you could do is switch it to patchwork, set the number of bosses to, let's say, 5 bosses. And now if you were to do 5 minutes, this is a pretty unrealistic situation, right? If you can find me one fight in the game where you're fighting 5 bosses for 5 minutes straight, please let me know in the comments. But what you can do is you can set the fight length to, for example, 1:30. And what this would do is this would more accurately give you a look at maybe a really big pull in Mythic Plus, where you're fighting a lot of targets at once. You're using your opener, popping all your cooldowns, you're pressing meta. All of those things are happening within that short window, and this will give you a good read on your burst. But the most accepted fight style across all players is patchwork, 1 boss, 5 minutes. It's simple, and it just gives you an accurate read for a single target boss. Now, at this point, I feel like I need to make something clear. The result of your sim should not be your target in-game. It should not be what the goalpost is for you and your gameplay. It's just not realistic. You have to remember that this is a literal robot performing your rotation for 5 minutes straight, no interruptions, no mechanics that it has to deal with, no half-a-second brain lapse that we all struggle with from time to time. None of those interferences are happening for this robot. So the output and the performance in the end is going to be much higher than what you are likely getting in-game. What this whole thing is best used for is to compare pieces of gear against each other to find out what's going to help you perform the best once you get in-game. Right, so if we scroll all the way back to the top of this screen, we can go to the Droptimizer section. Now again, you're going to paste your info into that box. That's going to bring up your character. Now here you're going to select the source. Kazalgar is going to be world bosses, Nerubar Palace is the raid, Mythic Plus dungeons is obvious, normal dungeons, Delves, Season 1, Catalyst, Professions, PvP, so on and so forth. So for example's sake, let's choose Nerubar Palace. Once we click on that, you can scroll down and select the difficulty that you're currently doing. For the sake of this demonstration, let's use Heroic. And now this dropdown is very important. You want to click on this and set the base level to the maximum upgrade for that track. So Hero 6 out of 6. This is important because this is what the item is going to end up as eventually whenever you upgrade it. Because the idea is if you're getting an item in raid, you're going to be using it, you're going to upgrade it all the way. And doing this makes it easier for everyone in your raid to compare items on an even playing field to see what is better for who. So underneath, you'll see all of the different slots and all of the items that pertain to those slots. So we can see main hand, we have these options here, head, we have these options. For the head slot, it's telling me there's this non-tier piece, but we also have the opportunity to put it in the catalyst to turn it into this item. And that's what the cat in the top left corner means. Same with the shoulders, and they're just, offset, not tier. If we were to turn them into tier, they would turn into this. We have these other items that are crossed out, either because we already have them, or we're wearing a better version of it. For jewelry, it'll always be simmed with 2 sockets in it, because in the War Within, you can buy items on the auction house to use on your rings or your necklaces to immediately give them 2 sockets. So it's assumed that you're going to spend the gold to get those sockets on those pieces. If you see an item that just has this green arrow, that means it's the same item that you already have, but at a higher item level. Now, when you're doing this sim, again, it's going to be up to your guild, but most guilds agree to all do patchwork, 1 boss 5 minutes, as it's just the gold standard and gives everyone an even playing field to compare items. So let's go ahead and click on Run Droptimizer, and then we just let it run. And this might take a few minutes because it's simming all of those different items in different combinations to see what each item is going to give you when it comes to DPS. Now, once you get your actual results, if you scroll down, it'll show you a breakdown of each boss, which items it drops that would be an upgrade, the expected value, this is the kind of the average of all of the pieces, and then the best DPS. And this is indicating what the best item from that boss is going to give you in terms of total DPS. The good thing about this is that they're prioritized, so you can prioritize which bosses you want to be in for if your raid has that flexibility. If you're switching people in and out, you can say, hey, I want to be in for Nexus Princess Kaivessa and Queen Ensrek. I don't really want to be in for Brood Twister or the Bloodbound Horror. If you keep scrolling down, you're able to see each item individually. So we can see that the Treacherous Transmitter is going to give me 24.6 thousand DPS. The Seal of Poisoned Pact from Queen Ensrek is going to give me 17.1. We have Mad Queen's Mandate. See, each one of these is broken down to tell us exactly what they're going to give for us. So in green, it tells us the DPS that it's adding, and to the left of it, this purple number, this is what it's bringing our total simmed DPS up to. We can also click on relative DPS here if you'd rather see that number in a percentage. So instead of 24.6 thousand, this sets it to 2%. So let's say you wanted to do this for Mythic Plus rather than Raid. You would go back to Droptimizer and select Mythic Dungeons. You can click on all dungeons or a specific one that you're shooting for. Now, let's say you're looking to farm dungeons for the end of dungeon loot. You obviously wouldn't select plus 10 Vault because these aren't items that you're going to be able to get from the end of dungeon. The highest that you can get is from Mythic 9 or Mythic 10. If you wanted to see what Mythic Plus loot from your Great Vault would be, then you could select plus 10 Vault or plus 9 or 8 Vault, plus 7 Vault. Ideally, everyone's shooting to get at least 1 plus 10 slot in your vault. That's what you would select. But if you want to go to end of dungeon loot, we can click on Mythic plus 9 and again set the base level to max and then run Droptimizer. Now, I feel like I should mention that if you do currently have a vault full of options and you haven't been able to decide on what you want to take from your vault, when you type /simc and open up this window, if you have opened your vault just to look at it and then you copy this information and paste it into Raidbots, it will account for those items as if you had them in your bags. So it'll still show up in top gear, so you can sim the options that you have in your vault to decide what choice is going to be the best choice for you to take from your vault. Now, if we go back to the homepage of Raidbots, the next module we can look at is Quick Sim. So this is just to run a quick sim to get your DPS and detailed stats. This is what you would use if you just want to compare your character to maybe your friend's character to see who is simming higher, or if you're just curious as to what your build is simming for and you want to see your damage breakdown, you can do it this way. This isn't comparing any of your own gear or any talent builds. This is strictly what your character has on in the moment that you took that wall of text from in-game and then plugged it into Raidbots. Again, this shouldn't be used as a target or a goal for your DPS. There's a lot of other factors that go into your actual performance in-game, and this doesn't account for any of that. Now, I know people are going to ask me about stat weights, and there's a reason why stat weights are filed as a legacy tool on Raidbots. So you should not be simming your stat weights to figure out what gear you should be using. The way that stat weights work is it tells you your current value based off of the gear that you currently have equipped on your character, which stats are valuable for you and which ones are less valuable for you. Again, this is based off your current gear and your current stats. These values fluctuate based off of how much of the stat you have on your character currently. So let's say I sim my stat weights and it tells me mastery is a very high value stat. Some might assume, okay, if mastery is very high value, I'm going to get more of it. So you go to the auction house and you buy all of these mastery enchants, you buy mastery gems, mastery everything, right? You load up on mastery. Then you go and you sim your character. And now because you've hit certain breakpoints and thresholds, mastery becomes less valuable for you because you have too much of it. And it's not just that you have too much of it, but you've also made sacrifices to your other stats in the process. So because you have less haste or less versatility or less critical strike, those stats become more valuable now because you're missing what you actually need. So then you go and sim your stat weights and it's telling you critical strike is now your highest simming stat. So this is the trap that people fall into. This is why using top gear to figure out what you should use on your character is the best possible way to figure all of this out. Whether it's gems, enchants, pieces of gear to use, top gear is the best way because it sims thousands and thousands and thousands of iterations to actually come to a valid result. It shuffles your gear around. It gives you an answer that you couldn't possibly get as a human. So hopefully that gave you a good breakdown on just the basics of simming. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop a comment down below and I'll try to answer it the best that I can. Again, I stream on Twitch. Link to that will be down in the description. I'd also really appreciate it if you subbed to this YouTube channel. We got some awesome growth over the past couple weeks, and hey, there's no place other than forward, so let's keep it going. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.